our bi-weekly show. What is that? Twice a week.
Yeah, that works.
Twice a week. Yeah. Here from Studio C, palatial Studio C facilities, we've got the black light on, the lava lamp going. Cappuccino machine is running. We have a guest today, and we always take care of our guests when they come in. Got him in the big recliner. Of course, we're talking about Vern Warnke. He's running for sheriff, the sheriff's race here in Merced County. Very, very important race. And we've already talked to Frank Swigert. Now we have Vern in studio. I don't really consider there being 4 candidates. I'll tell you, this fourth guy, Jim Soria, I don't know where he's coming from. I guess he finally got his paperwork in a month late, but maybe he was busy doing something other than his paperwork. But folks, we have in here Steve Colvard, the best engineer in the business, drinking his coffee, running the board. Robert, the Velvet Sledgehammer Tomasetti, going through the latest edition of the Sunstar.
I'm annoyed.
Yeah, we're going to have to talk about that. Of course, I'm Casey Steed, and you're here on a Thursday evening, 2nd day of May.
First day of May.
First day of May.
Is it May 1st?
This is May 1st.
May 1st, buddy.
First day of May.
You're only off 24 hours, brother.
Who? I'll tell you, I just can't get these dates right. I think I have never said the right day to our show. May 1st. And we appreciate you having here. If you ever want to look at our old shows, KYOS.
Look at our old shows. He does that all the time. I think he does it on purpose.
I think he does too.
Listen to our old shows on YouTube, KYOS space 1480
He's socially autistic.
You can listen to those shows. Of course, you write into the station, 1020 West Main, Merced, California, 95340 if you have any comments. We do get a few letters from out there at the penitentiary. We have a captive audience out there, I like to say, and you get a listener where you can, right, Steve?
That's right. That's right.
So, we do what we can, but I just wanted to give a follow-up. I was talking a couple of weeks ago about my transmission went out and how I took it over to Banner Transmissions, talked to Joe over there, and a real straight shooter. He told me, look, Case, it's a big transmission out of a big Ford. It's going to be $1,800, but I'll see if maybe I can, rebuild it. If it doesn't need the full rebuild, maybe we can save you a little bit.
And you took that out of your vehicle that's sitting in Oklahoma and brought it back here because Banner Transmission gives you a fair shake.
They do. They gave us a lot, just over the phone, a lot better estimate. So I took it in, and of course, those aspirations you have when you take it in, it's going to be, gentle. No, it was a complete rebuild. Metal in the pan, the whole 9 yards. It was basically trash. Couldn't even rebuild the one I had. He had to get another one that was rebuildable, get the parts, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, Joe really helped me out over there. And, he had told me $1,800. I went to get it. He said it was, we were able to save you a little and give you it for $17, which that really helped. Keeping an extra $100 in my pocket for the fluid and stuff. So again, I just wanted to give a shout out to Joe over there at Banner. Thanking him for taking care of me, and that's just the way he does business. I was referred to him by a local businessman here in town, and that's just the way he does things. So I would encourage people, if they have a transmission problem, to go over there. Like I say, today we have in studio Vern Warnke. He's running for sheriff. But one thing Robert wanted to talk about before we get to Vern,
I didn't even know this was out there.
Is in today's Sunstar, there was an editorial from their editorial staff in regards to John Pedroso, not even addressing Karen Adams, but really just kind of singling out John.
So what does that tell you?
Well, I tell you, I just think this is a little over the top. I mean, we've talked about this issue last week, and I thought it was kind of put to bed, but it's like, how many times are you going to dredge this up?
And it's been, over a week and a half since it's been the Sunstar. But what it says Pedroso's actions are unacceptable. The question of how well Karen Adams is performing as Merced tax collector will have to wait for a different editorial. I'm waiting for that one.
Yeah, because I think that one was more pointedly.
I think these are hit pieces. And, Vern, he's sitting to my, air traffic control right. Okay. Vern's sitting to my right, and we're going to ask him about these because, I mean, come on. When you're in the public eye, I understand you're going to be criticized, okay? But to have hit piece after hit piece, okay, first of all, it says here that once after, that Karen Adams had to return money once after Pedroso vouched for Victor. Let's put this straight. Karen Adams found that Mr. Victor's money was taken illegally, okay? And it was unacceptable. She returned it. John Pedroso got a phone call out of the blue while he was vacationing in the Azores, in his metropolis at the Azores. And
Palm Springs.
Huh?
I think he was down in Palm Springs.
I don't care. He was in the Azores. I'm concerned he's Portuguese. Yeah. Anyways, Johnny, I think, owns an island over there.
Oh, yeah.
But anyways, So John comes back. He gets on the phone. He calls him. He says, okay, what's going on? The guy says, I'm behind. Here's the problem, da-da-da. He calls, doesn't do anything on his own, which is good. He's learning. So instead of getting on the phone like he did with Porras and trying to find out and trying to play detective, John says, I'm going to call Karen Adams and get her involved because Karen Adams is the tax collector. So John goes out, does the hookup or the meeting with Karen Adams. Karen helps Mr. Victor. Karen reports to John what she did. Mr. Victor's happy. Mr. Victor kind of bungles the situation. So Karen Adams has to call John again and said, hey, look, I put my neck out on the line, or, I went out and he's supposed to be good for it. We made arrangements. This isn't going well. So John gets involved again, calls Mr. Victor. To this day, Mr. Victor's paying his bills. According to Karen Adams, he's paid over $150,000 since September of last year. It says, it is not uncommon for county supervisors throughout California to contact tax collectors on behalf of his constituents. That's what John did. Okay, right. Usually they're gathering information. That's what John did. Instead of John gathering the information, he sent her to Karen. It says, now you look here, it says big if Pedroso's efforts resulted in preferential treatment from Adams, then it was a serious breach of conduct for Pedroso. That's if. Yeah. The whole point of the matter, the person who put it in here says if. That's a cover my butt for my information. They put a big if right there, and John Pedroso, maybe not the most eloquent individual. John leads with his heart, he'll tell you that. But here he was doing what he thought was right for a constituent. He got him into who should handle this. It says supervisor doesn't appear to recognize the limits of his office. Look, John didn't go over there and make this deal. John said, Karen, please talk to the guy. That's all there was. This is ridiculous. This is retarded. I'd like the person to come forward and have coffee with me and tell me why they took so much effort here, to not slander, but I mean,
they're making a mountain out of a molehill, and I think the two issues, Porras was a totally different issue than this, and I think the issues that happened in the Porras, they can't be linked.
The scary thing to me is, it sounds to me like someone is controlling the Sunstar.
Well, I don't know about
it's not controlling, but look right below this.
How do you explain such asinine comments like that?
Because here's what I hate. People can hide behind.
It is in the opinion column.
It's in the opinion column, and never put a name there.
That comes from the board at the Sunstar. This is coming from the Sunstar.
The editor.
I mean, a county supervisor helps a constituent with a tax problem, and all of a sudden he's a villain?
Yes, because we don't like John. Because we want John out. Well, Look at the next one down. On your views, Richard St. Marie, who is Karen Adams' competitor, has written a piece here, Time to Recall Karen Adams. I'm not too sure that I go with all of this. Richard, I'm glad that you reported and you took the time, but you are a candidate for her office. So I take your piece and I put a big X in it, and I'm not reading it because I would rather read the new Merced County Times article, which I haven't yet. It says Karen Adams challenges Sunstar story.
No, there's some interesting things in that. But look,
what I want to do is I wanted to ask Vern.
Mr. Warnke, if you want to chime in at any time.
I'm having a good time listening to you guys banter back and forth here.
Vern, what do you think? I'm being honest here. What do you think if all of a sudden it says Warnke's actions are unacceptable, our view under the auspices, we have a tip, or we have a lead?
Well, the Sunstar was pretty critical of our ex-sheriff, too.
Well, and sometimes rightfully so on some of these cases. But I'm looking at this, and it looks like they had everything in there written about somebody that they liked, have the entire thing in there. The word if wouldn't have been in there.
Yes.
And they would have said, say they did like Pedroso. Say Pedroso's actions were very good to take care of his constituents.
Right. And I think that's how we look at it
here. I applaud the very thing that they're criticizing.
Right.
And that's what he's supposed to do. I believe the reason he ran for office was to help the folks out in his area, and doing that, I can't tell you how many times I've had people call me.
Who in here has not experienced that frustration with government, where you go in there and you want to deal with them, you want to work something out?
Any woman who has met Tony Thompson.
Well, I'll tell you, Vern knows there's a lot of frustration with our current sheriff's department.
What are you laughing at?
Yeah,
I'm being sledgy today.
We're going to talk about Tony. Vern Warnke started with the Merced Sheriff's Department in 19 1979. Retired about 5 years ago. He's 55 years old.
He looks younger without a hat.
He looks.
When I heard he was like 56, I went, Vern's 56? You do. You look much younger without a hat.
Well,
I see him
we
at the
lost a
cigar
year.
store
He's actually 55.
with his hat on.
He is currently a reserve officer. Reserve sheriff. Put your hat back on, please.
Look at you.
Currently a reserve officer with the department.
Correct.
And able to maintain your post and keep current with that. I know that's always important for law enforcement. So tell us, Vern, let me just say this, and I said this with Mr. Swigert. I feel that if Sheriff Pazin hadn't been assigned to Sacramento, and he would have ran again, I'm pretty sure. I think he would have been unopposed.
I agree with you. I don't think anybody would have opposed him, and there was a lot of people that wanted to. But Mark was a political powerhouse locally, and he really was.
He really was.
So. There was a lot of people that had said or suggested that they would like to run for sheriff when Mark left.
Right.
And so the opportunity came up, and those folks have obviously jumped in. And it was never my intention to run for sheriff, except all the phone calls I got from the deputy sheriffs to.
Well, and doesn't that beg to point out the fact that there needed to be some changes, or changes were due? Because people weren't really happy maybe with the direction, and they wanted, not only because he wasn't around, but they wanted new blood. They wanted some new ideas.
Well, and I think that a lot of folks get tired of the same stuff, and I believe that at the time when Mark decided to leave, a lot of this was becoming a political mecca. If you were friends with somebody, or if you had to be personal, if you just do the right thing. That's what I'm looking at. You just do the right thing. It doesn't make any difference if they gave to your campaign or voted against you.
Right.
If it's the right thing, then by gosh, do it.
Right.
And that was the whole issue with regard to the CCW thing.
Right.
We've got a lot of folks in this county that want and are qualified and meet every bit of criteria for their CCW, but just arbitrarily getting denied.
Now, Sheriff Christensen, to the north of us, has issued record numbers of CCWs.
And
he hasn't had any.
Mims.
And Sheriff Mims to the south.
Yeah.
Haven't had any vigilante justice or concerns, have we?
No.
Yet.
Well, I don't think we, and here's why I don't think it's going to be on the forefront, is because the folks that want the CCWs, they want to do what's right, but they also want to have the right to protect themselves.
Right.
Unfortunately, not everybody is a black belt in jiu-jitsu or karate or crazy.
Right.
They got to have a way to protect themselves, and sometimes they have to even it up. What's it? They said. Was Sam Colt?
The great equalizer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. God created equal, but here you go with Sam Colt. I believe that every person in this county that has a desire and the ability and the right and meets the criteria should be allowed to carry. Because, I'm a full believer in an armed society is a safer society. The crooks aren't going to know who's packing.
Right.
And they're going to start thinking twice about picking on the silver blue-haired lady if she's packing a 9mm.
Right.
Like Ellie Wooten?
Ellie Wooten does like guns. But you bring up a good point, because if you can't trust the law-abiding citizens with a constitutional right, you think that the criminals are going to abide by the same rules?
They don't have rules.
Right.
They know that, and they know that we're bound by those rules. And because we don't want to end up at, maybe I do want to end at, Sandy Mush, because that's an easy place to get out of right now. We'll talk about that. But I'm agreeing with you, because the citizens that want these permits, they're the ones that are the good souls. They're the ones that want us to be able to come out and deal with it. I've been on a few calls where the guy says, I'm packing. I said, well, just make sure you're pointing away from me when we go into this.
Right.
Because we don't have the luxury of having 8 cops in one area.
Right.
And that gets a little stressful at times.
Well, one of the things when you talk about 8 cops in one area is you get down to budgets. And, we've heard the county budget is going to be in a deficit again this year. What's the sheriff's budget roughly?
$43 million, right in that area.
And what's the split between corrections and patrol?
Well, on paper, corrections consumes 40% of the budget.
So 40% of 430 would be about, $16-17 million.
Okay, I'll go with your math.
Roughly.
You say so.
You're going to figure this out. But the reality is because of the overtime, the lack of officers, the whole bit is they're actually consuming 60% of that, and which is taking away from our operations side. And that part has got to stop. I know right now that our current administration at the sheriff's office is doing everything they can to get our correctional staff taken care of. I know this. I've been talked with.
You mean by hiring more people?
By hiring more people, they'd love to hire more people, but you can't push a rope. Some people say, well, Vern, why don't you hire more women or Martians?
Yeah.
Well, if you don't get them to apply,
right. That's a very good point about
it's very tough.
Hiring diversity. I think that was one of the questions. Like you say, you can't force it.
Yeah.
You have to have people. But when you talk about this overtime, isn't there a safety concern out there by working people?
Strong safety concern, but what do you do? Guys calling in sick, and you got to have a minimum staffing to inmate to officer ratio, and these guys are putting their lives on the line. I was out there, I walked with them, I talked with our correctional officers, and put it bluntly, it sucks for them. It absolutely sucks. The conditions that they're working in is deplorable. Their morale is low. They have no reason to trust our administration because of the past administration's policies.
There's a lot of friction in the past.
A lot of friction. When you get referred to, when we have an upper administrator refer to a person in the union as the Yeti. Okay, I'm sorry. How are you going to feel compelled to want to talk to this man?
A lot of respect off the get-go, is there?
And he said, and then he followed it up with, you'll hear about these things, but you never see one. Well, that's what he referred to. I'm sorry. How do you gain trust by immediately starting that and publicly saying this is what this is?
Right.
Okay. Now, there's a lot of the issues that are out there that I've seen. They're shooting themselves in the foot. They're shooting themselves in the foot, and they're doing some of this on purpose, and that's not a good thing. But you know what? We've got the majority of the folks that are working in our corrections are dynamite men and women. They're putting their biscuits on the line every day. Mm-hmm. And we've got to get
biscuits. I like these terms. Candidates are using good old spun words.
Okay.
My question is real quick.
Sir,
I talk in segments
now.
Robert's very.
I was talking. Well, I like to talk in segments. I follow you. We keep going. Okay.
Can you hold this till the second
Speaking
segment?
of segments,
possibly?
yeah, we ran way over. I wasn't watching the clock. I'm sorry, folks. We'll be right back.
You were enamored with.
I was listening to every word he said. Every word he said.
He look a lot younger than I thought he was.
He's 55. We'll be right back.
Swinging.
Folks, welcome back to Citizen Watch on this May 1st, Thursday edition.
Got it right again.
I got it right.
This time.
This time, yeah, you're right about that, Vern. It's every show is a unique one. Folks, this is from Studio C. Got Steve Colvard, Robert the Velvet Sledgehammer, Tomasetti. I'm Casey Steed, and we have our special guest in studio today. From the sheriff's race, candidate Vern Warnke. I appreciate Vern coming in here. I know he's been on the campaign trail. He's had a lot of events. I witnessed him at the Tea Party debate. He had a very, very, very strong showing. I think Mr. Swigert was remiss that he left early.
Although that one lady was really sorry he left.
Yeah.
But it wasn't for the reason.
No, I think I would have showed up at dessert at my fundraiser to interact with the folks there. It was a packed house. There was a lot of great questions. Vern,
good to see people involved, getting involved.
It really was. I tell you, this, like I say, this
big ups to Jim Price and the Tea Party out there now.
Vern, let me ask you, were you surprised there were that many people?
Pleasantly surprised, yes, because this is my first political endeavor ever.
Not your last, I hope.
And, well, as much fun as this has been, but seriously, what I'm finding is there's a lot of folks don't really care.
Yeah, and that's exactly right.
This is horrible. We got folks that go, oh, why should I care about the sheriff? I'll tell you why you need to care about the sheriff. He's the most powerful person in your county that can deal with you on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm. Can I ask you a question?
Of course you can.
Some people say that Pat Lunny, who's being pushed, and I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Okay.
Welcome to the show, Vern.
I wonder when
it's a good thing we don't have TV monitors here in a minute. Go ahead.
Pat Lunny, here's what people have asked me. They said, Pat Lunny is, and this is how they've characterized it. Pat Lunny is Larry's boy, and Larry's attacking John, and he attacks this person, and he's got people in retreat, but he's pushing Pat for sheriff. Do we think, or do I think, that it's a good position to have the district attorney running the sheriff's office? And I know you say this because I remember when Mark and Larry were here together, they would argue back and forth jokingly, or maybe not jokingly, sarcastically, as to who was the top cop in
The most powerful law enforcement official in the county, is it the district attorney or is it the sheriff?
Right.
They always had these arguments back and forth, but people have said that by Pat Lundy being pushed by Larry, and that's Larry's boy, and Larry's molding some of the campaign structure and all this stuff, and Larry's out there stumping all the time, that if Pat Lundy becomes sheriff, that means that Larry basically will control both.
Well, that's
Do you
a
find that
well, it's a perception.
perception out
That
there?
is a perception, and I always view perception is reality, but it doesn't make it fact. I know that what Larry has done, because I received a letter from Larry when, because I'm an EVOC instructor, and that's emergency vehicles, and Larry brought his folks out there. Well, Larry wrote me a really nice letter, and in his letter addressed to me as being the top law enforcement official in the county. Well, we're on the air, and you're going to record this. No, you're not, Larry. The sheriff is.
Yeah.
And I like Larry, and we banter back and forth. We go to the lodge together. The same with Pat. The fact that Larry's willing to stump for somebody, is he using his position? Well, probably. But when you're passionate about something, and Larry's passionate about Pat getting in there, I can't fault Larry for doing it, because he is doing it. But is there a perception? Yeah, there is a perception. I've had that, and I've had people telling me that there is a perception. Is it fact? I don't know. It's going to be a guessing game. But a lot of people's basing their vote on perception. So if that's the case, then...
But is that healthy? Is it healthy to have such a close relationship between the sheriff and the district attorney's office?
I don't know about having
Because
that
we're coming
close.
out of a dynamic with the past
Exactly.
sheriff is that they were not
Exactly.
on the same page.
I think with the sheriff and the district attorney, they may have a love-hate relationship, but if they respect each other and believe that the other person is being truthful, and that's what you got to have. You got to have that trust. Larry and I may differ politically, but I tell you, I don't distrust the man. I've dealt with him on several occasions. He's a good man. We may not agree on a lot of things, but I can trust him. If I went to him with an issue and I said, "Hey, Larry, as your sheriff,"
But as a citizen, it wouldn't concern you if Mr. Lunny were to become sheriff, the relationship between the two? I mean, is it something
Several
that we
things
as citizens...
concern me about it.
Well,
I know they concern you. But the reality of it is that, like Steve said, the past sheriff and the DA did not have a good relationship.
Well, about the past DA and the past sheriff and all that hanky-panky.
I'm just saying that I think the sheriff's department and the DA department need to work together. One of the criticisms, and let's address it specifically, Payson didn't put the emphasis into gangs that Larry Morris thought should be put into gangs. Larry felt he was having to spend part of his budget to put into gang suppression when that should have been the sheriff's responsibility. What do you think should be done differently with gangs?
Well, it has to be a collaborative effort, because the gangs don't know the boundaries.
Right.
The sheriff's office needs to be involved. Now, here's the issue that I've seen in the past. Who's going to be in charge?
Right.
And that's always been an issue. If you take this one creed, and I believe this with my whole heart, there's no limit to the amount of good that can be done if you don't care who gets credit.
Right.
If you've got somebody willing to head that up, then by gosh, let's go after them, because the citizens don't care. They want something to get done. And if the chief of police in Atwater has got the scruples and all the good stuff that goes with this, and he can put together a gang task force, and I'm just being hypothetical,
right,
or the chief of police in Gustine, or a sergeant in Doss Palace, if they've got that going on and they've got some solid ideas to work with that, then let them run with it, because those are the kinds that are going to be movers and shakers and get the job done. I don't care that my name's attached to it. I'll support everything I can to get it done. But we do have to do this, and it's got to be collaborative, because it's not a one-stop shop here. The sheriff's office is going to need help from Merced Police Department. Merced Police Department's going to need help from Atwater Police Department, and so on and so forth. But we've got to come together and realize that we've got the focus is let's go after the gangs. So let's don't care what the newspaper says. My gosh, Vern Warnke is sheriff. He's going to do all. I don't care. The county gang task force is kicking butt. That's what we want to see.
See, and that's absolutely different from the last two district attorneys and the last sheriff. The last sheriff loved to have his name in lights. Boy, if they could put it on a billboard, he would. And it's the same thing with the district attorney. Now you got Pat Lunny, who was here, went up somewhere, didn't do that great of a job like they would like his record to state. He comes back, I don't know what I want to do. Yeah, so he goes and works for Larry. Oh, great guy. And now all of a sudden, I want to be the sheriff. I'm 67 years old, and I got a post-retirement job. And people look at this, and they look at it, and they go, what? Why? Who? Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Well, the thing that interests me the most is the relationship, the most productive relationship you can have between the district attorney and the sheriff, because there is kind of that argument about who is the most powerful law enforcement official in the county. Obviously, people in this room believe it to be the sheriff, but
of course, and I think that's always kind of a little fun thing, you know. That
and it isn't fun. But here's my point, Casey. Is it fun? Because I've been at fundraisers where there was somebody who put a candidate on the spot by hijacking bids, and that guy came to me and he said, if he does that one more time, I'm going to take him out back and whip his butt.
Oh, I love that kind of stuff, though.
You think it's fun, but it's not taken as fun.
Well, personalities always come into play in these things, you know, and these folks are elected, and they want to believe that, you know, what their limits are. But like I say, you know, let's talk about Vern, and let's talk about Vern, what he's going to do. Okay, so we've talked about gangs, and the focus maybe hasn't been on him as much as some of the STAR task force, I guess.
Correct.
Now I know Caballero in the interim has put some more emphasis towards gangs. Do you think that needs to continue to combat the gang issue?
We do, but it has to be thought up in a series of how you're going to do it. You got to treat these gang problems and the drug problems, because they're going to run hand in hand as cancer. How do you deal with cancer? You go in and you cut the problem out, which is the cancer, and now you've got to treat it. Right. It's one thing to go after, and you go after them hard, and I mean hard on a daily basis.
Right.
You're doing that. That's attacking the cancer itself. Right. Now you go after the treatment program. These kids that we're dealing with, because when I was teaching in the school districts as a DARE officer, these kids as young as the first grade are learning this gang stuff from home or from their cousin or from their neighbor. Mm-hmm. We've got to go after that aspect. If we don't educate these kids into this, because if we don't give them a hero, they're going to find one on their own.
Right.
And I've been involved with the schools. You know, when I talk about my experience, I've taught for years in the school districts teaching about drugs and gangs. And I know what to do with those kids. I can talk to them on a level that they understand and can actually do something to get them motivated. And by getting them motivated, we can actually make some turns. You're not going to save everyone, but you save the ones you can. And by doing nothing, we're saving nobody.
Yeah. Well, like you say, a lot of this begins at home, which is lacking. I know that's one thing that Payson used to say on his radio show is I don't know, he called them knuckleheads that just perpetuated, you know, more knuckleheads, and you have this endemic situation with, you know, just the same thing happening. So somewhere you got to break in there. So let's talk a little bit about undersheriff. How important the undersheriff position is to you. In other words, that's going to be your right-hand man, right, or woman.
Right-hand man or woman. And it's extremely important because as in any, I must call it a couple, one should complement the other.
Right.
And for me being sheriff, I know that it's a hands-on deal. I know that the sheriff is not the administrator, contrary to some popular belief that you've got to be the administrator. The sheriff is responsible to the people. The sheriff's going to hire an administrator. By hiring an administrator, that's going to be the undersheriff. And the undersheriff is going to be the one to deal with the personnel issues and to do that, because the sheriff has to deal with the citizens, because the citizens have wanted to put the sheriff there. The citizens don't put your police chiefs there. Okay? The citizens didn't put lead investigators. The citizens elect the sheriff for a reason. Mm-hmm. That reason is to make sure that things are going harmoniously. Yes, you can run a multi-million-dollar budget. Well, you know what? It's a bunch of zeros. Each one of us has a budget in our house. Each one of us. Okay.
What would you see as your role as sheriff to the state of California? Because I know Mr. Payson was up in Sacramento quite a bit.
You got a new job, that's why.
Well, but before that, is it
when you say my role? Are you talking about my association with the state?
Well, is it on you to go up and lobby for funds and things like that from the state to get them back into the county?
And I believe yes, because when you're dealing with the state at that level, you're there as a representative for each person in this county. Mm-hmm. You're not there as just the representative from the sheriff's office. You're there representing not only the sheriff's office, but the police departments and everything that goes with that. That's why police chiefs aren't elected. The sheriff is elected by the people to go up and take care of business. And if you have a good, strong undersheriff, and yes, I do have a mind on who I'm going to ask.
Don't tell him it's me yet.
Okay.
Oh, jeez.
But what I am looking at is my undersheriff is going to be a strong administrative person, a strong person to get into what is going to be taken to do that. But you have to have a strong sheriff that's willing to go up and stand next to the men and women of this department when they're negotiating with the Board of Supervisors.
But part of your job as sheriff sheriff is going to be dealing with that political beast. That
it is going to be a
up there and
political
doing that thing.
beast, but I know how to deal with folks. Okay, and I don't believe in a lot of the quid pro quo. You know what? If you're going to go up there and do it, but a good sheriff will go up there and deal with it, look you in the eyes, and say, this is what we need to get done. Oh, I'm sorry. And look you in the ear, because that's all I can see from you right here.
Big hairy ear.
Don't pay any attention to all that hair growing out of there.
Yeah.
So, but that's what that sheriff is going to be able to do. I've been assured by Mark that he's a phone call away. All he has to do is get me introed. I don't care who the most seasoned politician is. Mm-hmm. They had a first day walking through those doors in Sacramento. My first day, okay, people are people, and you know how to deal with people, but if you get in there and do the right thing, and I would go up and want to do the exact right thing. I'm not in this for glory. I'm looking at putting another 15 or 20 years in of work.
Not just one term?
No.
Okay. Just ask it.
I know.
Unless it's a 15 or 20
It's been a question in the campaign.
Absolutely.
I'm boots on the street. I'm listening to people all over the place.
I think what Vern has highlighted here just now about administrative versus dealing with the troops is the difference between two of the candidates, Vern being one of them. And I think one of the telling statements that came out of the Tea Party debate is somebody asked Vern, basically, if you showed up on a scene, how would you manage things? And he said, hey, if I was asked, if my detectives are doing a good job, everybody's doing their job, I'm not going to step in and take over control again. You're not a glory hound. And if I'm asked to direct traffic, I will. And Lenny stood up after that and said, if you want somebody to direct traffic, elect Vern.
Yeah.
If you want somebody to be an administrator, elect me. And this is what we're hearing is really...
And Pat and I are polar opposites as far as that part there. Pat and I are friends. Okay, and I'd take a bullet square in the chest. Well, maybe my leg, but I'd take. But I mean that sincerely because Pat's a good man. But what I'm looking at, as far as what you're talking about, and I emphasize this for one reason: our past sheriff responded to and was on the scene of a homicide.
Right.
And detectives are handling this homicide. He goes into the homicide scene. Cop Rule 101: don't barge into a homicide scene.
Right.
Sergeant asked him to not be in there. Mark, please forgive me for this, but this is what he looked at the sergeant and said, remember your pay grade.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. If I roll up, that sergeant's in charge of the scene.
Right.
If I'm out on the street, the sergeant that's on duty is in charge of the street. I would clear it because that's what they're getting paid for. I show up and he says, what do you need me to do?
Right.
And that's what I'm going to ask because I can do it. You see, the fortunate thing about my experience, I've handled coroner's cases. I was assigned to coroner's division for 2 years. I've handled these things. I've handled homicide investigations. I've handled them physically.
Right.
I can do whatever's asked of me. There's a difference, an underlying fundamental difference between me and Pat.
Right.
I've actually gone out and done it. Now, Pat, I'm going to tell you, second to none as far as an administrator.
Right.
The man is brilliant.
Looks good in a suit, too.
But here's the
Okay, so we got it.
Yeah, we're running along on this section. We're going to talk. Be right back, Robert. Held that open gape. You brought up something very interesting about ego and how that can kind of get in the way of your decision-making capability or getting things done if you don't get the credit. I want to talk about that when we come back on Citizen Watch. Stay tuned, folks. How many do we got? 12?
We got about
13.
About 11.
Are we on?
Yep.
We're on right now.
We're rolling.
Okay, hey folks, welcome to our third and final segment. I'll tell you, these shows go so quick when we have these candidates in. There's so many questions. I want to give Vern the opportunity to talk this last segment. But one of the things we got into just a little bit at the end of the last segment was egos. And some people feel, I don't know if you're going to roll around with a podium in your trunk ready to go at any minute.
Well,
but,
I tell you, we've had it said before with our last administrator, the most dangerous place to be was between that man and a camera.
That's exactly right. You do not get in the way. You'll get your arm shoot off or sawed off. But, one of the things we talked about is a communication center, a centralized communication center in this county. And one of the reasons that hasn't moved forward is because of these type of issues, right?
Correct. Now, I do have a little insight with what you're talking about because I did some more research on it and delved into the reasons behind the non-centralized units because each area is going to have a unique situation. The city of Los Banos for instance, their communications people, their dispatchers are also custodial officers because they have the jail there in Las Vegas. So it wouldn't make any sense at all to move those folks to a centralized dispatch center because they have a unique need for what they've got going. So that department's going to take care of itself. The Merced City, they're in different codes and such, but their city dispatchers are also dispatching for their fire department. Okay, so there's different needs and there's different nuances within each neighborhood, in each law enforcement agency. Yes, I do think a centralized communication center on paper would be ideal, but if you start looking at the different dynamics from the different agencies, I don't know that it would work just strictly on the dynamics, not the ego part. Again, hire a communications director if that would work, but I don't think a centralized communication center would actually work because of the dynamics of our county, the way it's set up, and the needs. So yeah, I understand that, and egos have been a part, but after researching and actually looking at the needs of the different agencies, I just don't see that it's working because of the crossover with the jobs that they do.
Okay. Well, I know that was one of the things that came up in the debate. Another thing that came up was kind of interesting is a retired sergeant stood up in the crowd and said, "I've never worked for a dirtier department in the county. We need to manage the managers. There's incompetence and favoritism." And one of the statistics I look at in the department is 90% of the people have 5 years or less. And it begs you to ask the question, why don't we have people staying around? Is there incompetence? Is there favoritism that are running good people off and keeping certain people? And again, I'm not making any accusation. This was a sergeant that had retired, I think, after 20-some years.
Yeah, he was there.
And as we know, usually rot starts at the top down.
Exactly.
And so how do you address when a fellow law enforcement officer stands up and says that?
Well, as said earlier about perception, his perception is that there was some dirty or some corruptness, whatever his perception, and it's very real to him.
Right.
Because somebody may have gotten promoted over or something along those lines. And yes, I have seen it in the past that there's been promotions as a favor. One was done as a going away present. There are issues that are like that. It's for me to sit here and say that our department is corrupt. Well, I know our top administrators. I don't believe for a minute that they're corrupt. I don't believe that. I do not believe it. I do believe that there was some different philosophies, and that's what was getting after it. But there were some issues that
more of a perception thing on people's part.
More of a perception, and there are issues that yes, I would like to change in the administrative areas of it. But I don't believe for 1 minute that our administration is corrupt.
So it might have been in his small environment that he was in. He saw something, but it's not department-wide. It's not endemic.
Maybe he worked with Mr. Buttrey.
Well, we know there's some individuals that have had some instances. I don't think it's a secret. Mr. Buttrey was just one of the latest. But, these are the type of things. You're in there to change perceptions, to change the direction.
And that's what I want to do, because there are some things right now with regard to policy. We've got folks in administration that are using the system that's in place to benefit themselves.
Right.
It's not, okay, we all have our specific needs and we all, the things that we have going on, and that's what's going on. I want to change the system a little bit to prevent that from going on. We've got several deputies that don't do reports. We got several deputies that are full-time coppers that aren't doing cop work.
Why?
It's because of their assignments. Okay. And that's going to me, I think, if we've got that going on, then we reassign the deputies to do cop works and bring a civilian in to do those assignments.
Right.
Because it's more important for me to take our resources and divert.
Hey, every sworn position is gold.
You would think.
They shouldn't be doing administrative duties.
And I agree wholeheartedly. I was flagged down a few weeks ago because I was working the courts.
Right.
And one of the deputies comes out there and he says, "Hey, Sarge, can you believe this is what's going on?" He says, "They just called me and I was on a call in Snelling. They called me into the office to sign a ticket, to write a guy a ticket." And I about the top of my head about flew off. I said, "You got to be kidding me."
Right.
The department, I know, has got several gunslingers in there that could have done it, including the sheriff.
Sure.
And we've got, not 100 yards away, we've got a superior court that has at least 20 deputies, and I'll guarantee half of those weren't in court.
Right.
Could have done it.
Sure.
Again, with taking the resources that we have and making this a priority is to take the guy that's on the street, let him stay on the street. If those things coming in, and that's where I'm going to be one of those, because I'll be listening to the radio because I'll hear the call come in, and we have a lobby detail. Step out of my office if I'm in there, because more than likely be on the street anyway. But take a report.
It's kind of interesting he says that, because I live 3 blocks excuse me, from the police station, and people will go there and you ring the door. There's nobody here. What do you mean there's nobody here? There's nobody here. We'll have to get somebody off the street, and it takes 30 minutes to get somebody off the street, and you're like, and you need a new building for what reason?
Well, and these are issues, and you know what, to have an officer actually stationed there, because we've got officers that are full peace officers that might be doing a little bit of workman's comp or injury or something that we can have there to take care of that situation, and we've used them in those capacities before.
You mean like light duty officers that?
Correct, but a lot of times, sometimes it gets abused, and next thing you know, it's going by the wayside. So, you know, these are issues that need to be addressed. We've got retired deputies that would just love to keep their peace officer status. All right, you know what, come on down, sit on that, you know, and take reports.
So maybe expand the reserve program or
expand the
RSVPs
reserve. You know what, I've got, you know, I'm one of the few reserves that actually still works the street. Retired sergeant, and I'm out working the street, taking orders from guys that used to be my Explorer scouts.
I know, that's, yeah.
Okay,
and you have twice as many,
and do it
many
with
years,
and that, but that's their shift, and I'll do it exactly because that's their shift.
Well, you're there to support the department.
Exactly.
Right? You can't let that ego get in the way.
There is no.
I'm Vern Warnke, retired deputy now in reserve. Give me the glory positions. What can I do to help? That's your attitude.
Stand in front of the camera.
No. As far as I go out and take calls, I love dealing with the people, but one thing I like dealing is taking care of the problem. A lot of the times the deputies are so stressed as far as the amount of calls, they're taking the call and moving on to the next one. They're not dealing with the problem. We've got to get our guys with the mindset to deal with the problems. Okay, it's a quality of life issue. If there's a problem, let's take care of it. We've got guys with trash dumpings. We've got everything else. I ask the guys. I put my gloves on and dive into that, trying to find indicia who the bad guys are. But if you're looking
for a sheriff to do that, make sure you vote for Vern Warnke and not Pat Lunny, because Pat Lunny doesn't want to get his suit stained.
How do you really feel about Pat? Now, don't hold back.
No, you know
I don't want you to hold back now.
I'm going to tell you what I'm upset about.
Okay, look, I know what you're upset about. You're upset that Pat Lunny's in the race. Okay, I understand.
No,
but
it's
let's
not
give Vern just a little more time here, and I want to ask you. I would be remiss.
Comment and look at you.
I would be remiss if I didn't ask him about the Trident Center / AB 109.
AB 109. Oh my gosh.
What this is bringing back in our community again. I love the CCW because we've got some bad folks, some bad actors running around out there that should be in state prison.
Speaking of the CCW issue, and I'm going to address this real quick, but right now most of our correctional officers are not allowed to carry off duty.
Why? Correctional officers, what? They don't fall in the penal code under?
No, it was because of our past administration not classifying them, what I'm going to say correctly, because you can have it moved and have the our correctional officers actually classified as custodial deputies, where they maintain their peace officer status while they're at work, and you can give them the right if they're classified
custodial. Is that something you change?
Immediately. First day on the job is to start to get that process done, and until that process was taken care of, the correctional officers won't even have to apply it. So they're just going to get issued their permits, because these guys are dealing with the baddest of the bads, and they're going down the mall and seeing somebody that they've been in there, and if they've had a tussle, now they've got to worry about protecting their family.
And see, this is one of the things why you've had this division between corrections and patrol. This kind of crap where you're treating them different. Now, they do different jobs, and we know that.
Jobs, but you know what? They're dangerous jobs.
Right, exactly.
You've got to acknowledge that and understand that these are responsible men and women that are putting their lives on the line every day. We've got to give them better tools to work with so that they can maintain their safety and their families, because this isn't a joke. These people that are coming through here are the bad. This AB 109, we're getting these, I was going to say what knuckleheads. We're getting these guys coming back from the state that should be at state level. I was introduced to a prisoner a couple months ago and was told by a correctional officer he's doing 17 years.
Here at the Mush.
At the Mush.
How the hell do we do that?
It's just what's going on. I've got a plan right now for $120,000. In one day, I could have that place so that they couldn't escape. Or at least they could have tried. But we'd have a thing in place.
I want to hear this.
Okay. All we need is a couple of towers. I was tasked by Payson back in 2005 to come up with a plan for civil unrest. Well, during my tactical command experience with the FBI, this always get the high ground. Well, they've got these wonderful portable towers that are on trailers. And they're electric over hydraulic. You pull them up, drop the landing gear down, and you raise a tower up 20 feet. You put these two towers
with it.
Well, you put these two towers at opposing corners on that
fence
and staff them. you're going to stop a lot of the stuff immediately right now going through. I don't need a permit. I don't need anybody's blessings.
Right.
I need a pickup truck with a trailer hitch.
Right.
And that's what
And you
we can
have
do.
that.
And I've got it. So, but these are things that, and I'm thinking, I suggested this 15 years ago, and it was like I was.
No, but we need
speaking in Martian.
$132,000 for a new fence.
It's very refreshing to hear.
Yeah.
Isn't
Just
it?
that
I told
simple-
you, we
yeah.
need more Vern Warnkes
Okay,
around.
what about the Trident Center? Is it working? Is it not?
This is a fluid thing. It's successful. We've got a lot of things tied up in it. I see some flaws in it, but these are being ironed out. I'm not going to be the magic man to come in and fix that.
Right.
I am going to be one to come in and help make sure it gets facilitated better. But as far as administratively, this is one of those fluid things because we're still learning.
Right.
We're still getting all the nuts and bolts taken care of, all the bugs worked out, and our guys that are working in that area are very good at their job. And the collaborative effort between operations and corrections, because we have them ponied up together. They're working in that. But this is one of those things we have to continue to work together and get it done.
The big problem, and I think you'd agree, is the state isn't sending enough money down the line for us to take care of these issues.
Yeah. Thank you, Governor.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and then this is one of the things I know you're going to be probably...
Easy answer.
I'm
For
sorry.
easy answer. For every criminal they send down, put $1,000 in their pocket, and when they get to Sandy Mush, give me the $1,000. We're ready to go.
That would be nice if they would pay their freight, but they haven't. And
No, there's a lot of this that needs to go on. When I was in court a couple of weeks ago in Los Banos, we had an inmate, and I know we're running over time here.
No,
but
we're
we
getting
had
close,
we had an inmate that was there, and I've got 17 different classified inmates in this jury box in Los Banos, and you talk about organized chaos.
Right.
He's saying, he looks up at me, he says, man, I hope they keep continuing my case.
Right.
And I said, what? I said, you got to be kidding me. He says, oh, no, when they get done with me here, they're putting me back in Santa Clara, and that place sucks.
Yeah,
oh, I'm sorry, we're the Hilton now.
Yeah.
We're a correctional Hilton compared to other. You know what?
Bed
I want
breakfast.
this place to be the place where crooks don't want to come back
wanna
to.
go.
My
Sure.
hero, Joe Arpaio in Arizona.
yeah.
I mean,
Tent City, you wouldn't be opposed to that?
I'm all for it.
Refreshing. They're refreshing. I was talking to somebody about that this morning. I was saying you just don't see the balls out there anymore among our electeds. You know, people like Arpaio are a dying breed. Once he goes, I don't think you'll see very many people like that. But look how he bucked the system. He wasn't afraid. He was sued from every way to Sunday, but look what he's done for those people, and he has their utmost respect.
And his comeback, I loved it, from one civil organization, said, you can't treat our inmates that way. That's inhumane. He says, you know what, why don't you talk to the United States government and talk to them about their military personnel, because my inmates are living the same as our boys are.
That's right.
In Iraq.
Exactly right. Now, Vern, we have just a few minutes left. I want you to give your contact information, but do you have the 2-minute elevator speech? Anything you want to say in closing why people should vote for Vern Warnke for Sheriff 2014?
Well, I offer a completely different dynamic than my opponent, and make no mistake, I like it. Okay, and what I offer is the actual ability to go out and do the job and the ability to work with people. I feel that if the deputy sheriffs want me to be their boss, do you think that the morale is going to start increasing right away? I've got a lot of correctional officers that are supporting me, and I know that the correctional officers union went with somebody else, but I know that there's a lot of them that want me to be their sheriff. I think first day on this is the morale's going to start going up. Well, once morale starts going up, good things can happen because they're going to be motivated again. And that's what we got to get back to this. I don't, Sacramento, I know where Sacramento is. I can drive up there in 2 hours and make a right-hand turn and I'll be at the Capitol. That's how I want to know Sacramento. My job is to know what Merced County is. I want you to know that I know the problems on Ranch Road. I know the area on South Dos Palace. I know, I've talked with the people and I'm dealing with it. I have that unique, right now, the expertise in those fields. Yes, I'm not a prim and polished politician. I don't want to be. But what I am is honest. You can come into my office at any time, and you know that when something's going on, if the deputies are busy taking calls, I'm going to be out there taking them myself. And that's something else I want you to understand. Everybody from the sheriff on down to the explorers is going to be able to take a call. And that's how I want to do this, because we're using our resources wrongly right now, and I think we need to redirect them. So I appreciate your support, and I hope that folks get out there and vote on June 3rd.
How do they get a hold of you?
You can go to, I'm on Facebook, and I'm not Vern at Facebook. I don't know how that works. And then I've got vernforsheriff.com website. And
They want to call you? You want to give a number out? They can talk to you?
Not really.
Well, yeah, I've got some stuff, and I'm also at this week. I'm at the Los Banos Spring Fair. I work logistics there for them. I've done it for several years, and I also have a booth there, so they can come out and see me there. And if they want a sign or
Any other events before the 3rd?
Now, we've got a few speaking engagements again with the
Go to
the
Facebook.
forums and so on. They're being advertised. I wish they would just film this stuff, and then because it's almost all the same questions.
Yeah, I know. Well, we tried to mix it up a little bit here and talk about some controversy. Again, Vern, I really appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
Best of luck in this race, and I think you're a very, very, very strong contender. You had a great showing at the Tea Party event. It was a wonderful event.
Phenomenal.
And that can be viewed somehow online. I think it's on YouTube, that debate, so I would encourage people to seek that out. Steve, we got to go.
It's time.
Robert, any last words?
Good night, Mrs. Calabash, wherever you are.
Bye, folks.